Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going to delve into something pretty captivating, I think. The world of lost media. It's kind of like a cultural scavenger hunt in a way, but the treasures we're after are, well, they're not exactly easy to find.
Yeah.
We're talking films, music, even video games, things that have become largely inaccessible, lost to time, maybe only existing as fragments, rumors, or just like the faded memories of those who actually got to experience them. And to guide us on this exploration, we'll be tapping into some really cool discussions from the Lost Media Graveyard podcast. Alex and Sam, the hosts, they've dug up some awesome examples and mysteries surrounding this whole vanished world of media.
Right, exactly. And what we're aiming to do in this deep dive, well, it's more than just like listing these lost things.
Yeah.
We want to understand why does media disappear in the first place? We'll explore to some of the most intriguing examples from, well, different forms of entertainment, really. And then I think most importantly, consider why the absence of these pieces of culture might matter more than we initially think.
It's true. It's like, why do we care?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So, I guess a good place to start would be like the granddaddy of it all, cinema, right?
Right.
We're talking the Hollywood hauntings, kind of a haunting chapter in film history, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
It's pretty wild to think about, but it's estimated that over 90%, like over 90% of silent films are just gone.
90%.
Yeah, it's a huge chunk of early storytelling, visual artistry, even cultural reflection from that time that simply vanished.
Poof.
Yeah, poof. And I think a perfect example of this loss is the 1927 film London After Midnight, starring Lon Chaney, the man of a thousand faces.
Right. Lon Chaney, huge star, especially in that, the silent horror genre.
Oh yeah, master of disguise.
And this film, London After Midnight, it was a big deal. But, here's the thing. No known copies exist today.
None.
All we have is one single photograph. It's pretty eerie, actually.
It really is. And that image, that lone image, just, it like amplifies the sense of loss, doesn't it? It's like a whisper from the past, just a little tease of something that we can never fully experience.
That's true.
And the hosts over at the Lost Media Graveyard, they kind of hit the nail on the head when they described that photo. They said it was like a haunting reminder of, well, of the film's existence, It makes you wonder about those stories, the performances, the atmosphere that are just locked away forever.
Gone.
Yeah, gone.
And it raises this interesting point about lost media. Their absence, this unavailability, kind of creates a mythical status. Like London After Midnight, right? You could argue it's become even more legendary precisely because we can't see it.
It's true.
Our imaginations, they fill in the blanks. We might be creating something even more compelling than what the reality actually was.
It's like an unfinished puzzle that our minds are just desperate to complete.
Totally.
But it's not always a case of complete disappearance, right? There are sometimes, like little pieces that pop up. Take the 1914 Cleopatra film. Most of it is, well, it's gone, lost.
Right.
But a 20-second clip, can you believe it? 20 seconds surfaced in 2020.
Wow.
And even that teeny tiny fragment, it caused a stir among film buffs.
Oh, absolutely. It's a great example of how even those small pieces of lost media, they hold so much value.
Yeah.
Those 20 seconds, they're not just moving images, They give us a direct link to the filmmaking techniques of the time, the costumes, maybe even the acting style from over a century ago. It's a tangible link to a past that would otherwise just be, well, just theoretical.
And it really underscores why these films matter, It's not just about entertainment.
No.
They were a form of cultural expression, shaping and reflecting the societies that made them.
Like a snapshot in time?
Totally. And the Lost Media Graveyard team, they put it really well. They called these lost films time capsules.
Perfect analogy.
Yeah, it really is. Think about it. What if a film like Star Wars, the original, just poof, disappeared?
Gone.
Gone. Future generations would just have, I don't know, our descriptions, maybe a few pictures, They'd miss out on so much context.
It's true. It makes you wonder, why did so many of these silent films disappear in the first place?
Right. Like, was it just neglect?
Well, there were a few things at play, actually.
Okay.
The film stock itself, a lot of it was made with nitrate, which is, well, it's flammable and decays pretty easily.
Oh, right.
And back then, there wasn't the same kind of focus on preservation, like we have now.
Makes sense.
Studios, they often saw films as disposable, just commodities, not lasting works of art. And Sometimes they even recycled the film stock. They were after the silver content. It really shows you how different their attitude towards media was compared to ours.
It's true. It really makes you think. Okay, let's switch gears a bit and move from, visuals to sound. We're talking music, music's
Ghost tracks.
ghost tracks, exactly.
And when you talk about lost music, there's one example that always comes to mind. Because of its almost mythical status, we're talking about the Beatles, Carnival of Light.
Oh yeah, Carnival of Light.
Is a 14-minute experimental piece. They recorded it back in '67, right in the middle of their psychedelic phase.
That's cool.
Right, and it's become this legendary thing, this holy grail, precisely because it's been, locked away.
Yeah.
Paul McCartney, apparently he's wanted to release it for years, but there have been disagreements with the other band members' estates, especially Yoko Ono.
I see.
So it's there, it exists, but most of us will probably never hear it.
And that's another interesting aspect of lost music, isn't it? It's not always about, the physical thing disappearing.
Right.
In this case, with Carnival of Light, it's a question of access. It's about rights and artistic control. The guys over at Lost Media Graveyard, they had a really cool way of describing it. They said, imagine a sitar solo played by a dolphin on LSD. Which, I mean, wow.
Yeah, vivid imagery.
It's definitely a vivid picture. And the fact that there was like a $10,000 offer on 4chan for a leak of this track, it just goes to show how curious people are.
Oh, yeah.
Fans are just desperate to hear this lost piece of Beatles history.
They're obsessed.
Totally obsessed. It speaks volumes about their enduring influence.
Absolutely. It also brings up an interesting point about, ownership and access, especially in our digital age.
Right.
Carnival of Light, physically, it's stored, right?
Yeah.
But the fact that it's inaccessible to the public, it creates this sense of loss. And we see this with more recent stuff, too. Take Kanye West's album Yandhi. It was announced, there were snippets released, and then poof, it was basically erased.
Yeah. Yandhi is a good example of how even digital media, something we think as like permanent, can just become inaccessible.
Right.
It challenges that whole idea of digital permanence.
Totally. Servers go offline, files get deleted, artists change their minds. It's a different kind of lost compared to a decaying film reel. But the result's the same. The media's gone. We can't get to it.
Exactly. And speaking of things we can't get to, what about, what was it, Dr. J's Detox?
Oh, yeah. That's been talked about for ages, decades. It feels like snippets, rumors, the whole 9 yards. But the full album, it's never actually surfaced. It's almost mythical at this point.
Yeah. With Detox, it's interesting. The anticipation and the stories around this unreleased album, they might have become even more powerful than the actual music ever could be.
It's true.
It's the power of expectation, right? And the way we build these stories around lost media.
Totally. It all makes you think about, our relationship with media in general and what we just, take for granted when it comes to actually having access to it.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that advice from the Lost Media Graveyard guys. They said, hoard your MP3s. I know they were joking, but it makes you think, especially with streaming dominating everything these days.
Yeah. So much of the music we listen to, it depends on, these subscription services.
Right.
If a song, an album, whatever, gets removed from a platform, poof, it's lost to us, even if digital copies exist somewhere else.
It's a different way of consuming media and owning it,
Totally. Okay, so let's shift our focus one last time. This time we're entering the interactive world. Video games, we're going on a treasure hunt for gaming's buried treasure.
Yeah, let's go.
All right.
The world of lost video games, it's unique. You get unfinished projects, super limited physical releases, and then you have all the weird stuff that happens with digital storefronts. It's a Wild West out there.
Totally. And a really fascinating example is Sonic Crackers. It sounds like some kind of cereal mascot almost.
Haha, no, not quite. It was actually a beta version. Think of it like a rough draft of what eventually became Sonic and Knuckles on the Sega Genesis.
Ah, okay.
And here's the crazy part. A physical prototype cartridge, like the actual game cartridge, it turned up in 2007.
Wow. So unlike a lot of lost media, this one was, found.
Exactly. And what's even cooler is that, these passionate fans, they took that prototype and actually reconstructed it. They made a playable version of the game. It's a testament to the dedication of the gaming community and their desire to preserve their history.
That's incredible. What a story of rediscovery and collaboration.
Absolutely.
But then you have examples of, extreme scarcity, almost legendary, like the NES game Bioforce 8. Ever heard of that one?
Oh yeah, Bioforce Ape. That's a legend in the gaming world. From what we know, there's only one single copy that exists. The story goes that a developer kept it tucked away for something like 30 years. It's a piece of gaming history that was almost completely lost to time.
That's mind blowing. It's like that Picasso analogy the Lost Media Graveyard guys used. It's like the artist keeping a masterpiece hidden away.
Exactly.
Makes you wonder how many other, unique or unreleased games are out there just sitting in some forgotten box or on an old hard drive.
Right. Who knows what out there?
And then we have more modern examples of digital media, becoming scarce in gaming, like PT. That was that playable teaser for a Silent Hill game. Remember that?
Oh yeah, PT. That caused a huge stir when it got pulled from the PlayStation Store.
Yeah, it was never meant to be a full game, right?
No, just a short demo. But it was super atmospheric, really well made, and, built up a ton of hype for the new Silent Hill. But then the whole project got canceled and they pulled the demo.
And because of that, it developed this like cult following.
Huge cult following.
Yeah, and now PlayStation 4 consoles with PT still installed, they sell for a crazy amount of money.
It's wild.
It's like the Lost Media Graveyard guys called it, the haunted VHS tape of the gaming world. It's a digital artifact that has value because it's inaccessible and because of the story behind it.
Right, exactly. It highlights how, digital distribution can be pretty ephemeral.
Yeah.
When a game or even just a demo gets delisted from a digital store, it's basically gone for anyone who didn't download it when they had the chance. It raises all these questions about ownership and preservation in a world where everything's digital.
Absolutely. And speaking of things that make you question what's real and what's not, the Lost Media Graveyard podcast touched on this other interesting area, listener stories and the Mandela Effect.
Oh, yeah.
It's this phenomenon of like shared false memories. People remember media that either didn't exist or they remember it differently from how it actually was.
It's fascinating.
It is. They talked about a listener who vividly remembered the SpongeBob SquarePants episode where, get this, Squidward explodes. Turns out it was just a misremembering of the Squidward's suicide creepypasta. It's this fictional, kind of disturbing story that's spread around online.
It's crazy how those things take on a life of their own,
Right, and that's where they brought up the Mandela Effect. Could you explain what that is?
Sure. The Mandela Effect is this psychological thing where a bunch of people share a memory of something that didn't actually happen, or at least not the way they remember it.
Oh, okay.
So when it comes to lost media, it might be like people remembering films or songs, even games that never existed, or they remember details that were different.
I see.
It shows you how, like, memory isn't perfect. It could be influenced by suggestion and shared stories.
So it's like sometimes what we think is lost isn't actually media that's gone, but just a trick of our minds.
Exactly. It blurs the lines between, genuine lost media and how fallible human memory can be.
Wow. Okay. Well, after all that talk about lost media, it's nice to know that not everything stays lost.
Right.
This brings us to a more optimistic part of our discussion. We'll call it the hope chest. So despite all the media that's gone missing, there are times when things are rediscovered.
Yeah. And the Lost Media Graveyard podcast, they highlighted a fantastic example, a silent film version of The Wizard of Oz that had been lost.
The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah. And guess where they found it?
Where?
A barn in Norway.
No way. That's like something out of a movie.
Right. It's incredible. And they also talked about these missing scenes from Metropolis, that classic film by Fritz Lang. They were found in Argentina back in 2008.
Wow.
These rediscoveries, they're like piecing together our cultural heritage, bringing back things we thought were gone forever.
The podcast hosts use this term media archaeology. I think it's a perfect description, like uncovering artifacts from the past.
Totally. And these finds, they give us hope and show how important it is to keep preserving these things. Archives, museums, dedicated people all over the world, they're doing amazing work.
That's awesome. And it's a good point to bring it back to you, our listener. Like the folks at Lost Media Graveyard said, even those old digital things you thought were gone, like that song you put your heart and soul into and uploaded to MySpace back in the day, who knows, it might still be out there.
Yeah, on some forgotten server, just waiting to be found.
Pretty wild to think about.
It is. The digital world, while it has its own challenges for preservation, it also has the potential for these kinds of unexpected rediscoveries.
It's true.
Data can stick around in the most surprising corners of the internet, and there are people out there who are dedicated to recovering and archiving this digital history.
It's pretty cool. So as we wrap up our deep dive into the world of lost media, we'll leave you with one final thing to think about. We're living in this increasingly digital age, right? Physical media, it's becoming less and less common. Streaming is taking over. So what does this mean for preserving our cultural heritage in the long run? What do we need to do to make sure that future generations don't end up with even bigger gaps in their understanding of the past because so much of our present just disappears into the digital void?
Hmm.
It's something to really consider.
It really is.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. Until next time.